In 2019, engineers showed up along the Price River in Utah with a plan. They had money, equipment, and a detailed restoration blueprint. They moved sediment. They reinforced banks. They redirected water. All the things you do when a river is broken and you want to fix it. And yet, something wasn't working. The water kept moving too fast. The banks kept eroding. The land around it stayed dry. All that effort, and the river still couldn't hold itself together. So what did Utah end up doing? They brought in beavers, hundreds of them, into one of the driest regions in the American West, which, on the surface, sounds completely ridiculous. Beavers and desert probably shouldn't appear in the same sentence. And yet, here we are. And the reason this actually makes sense, once you understand what's really going on, is genuinely surprising. Here's something that sounds simple but most people completely miss. The American West doesn't just have a water shortage problem, it has a water speed problem. Look at the San Rafael River in central Utah. Over recent decades, researchers noticed something unsettling. The channel had cut down sometimes 3-4 feet deeper than it used to be. That's called an incised stream. Most people have never heard of it, but it's one of the worst things that can happen to a watershed. When a stream cuts down, the water table around it drops. The floodplain, that flat area beside the river that used to flood seasonally, dries out. Plants die. Tree roots lose access to moisture. Banks start crumbling. Sediment falls in. The channel gets worse. More incision, more drying. It becomes a loop. And once it starts, it's very hard to break. Here's why that matters. When a stream is incised, water doesn't stay. It runs. Spring snowmelt that used to spread across the floodplain and absorb slowly into the ground for months now passes through in a matter of weeks. The land gets a pulse of water, then nothing. Flood, then drought. The ground doesn't have time to drink. Think of it like a highway. You widen it, traffic speeds up, nothing stops, nothing lingers. Water behaves the same way. When the channel is too deep, too straight, too fast, it just delivers water somewhere else. Not here. Take Red Canyon Creek in Wyoming. Restoration crews spent years there with conventional tools, rock weirs, bank stabilization, regrading, and the stream kept cutting, kept draining. Because the underlying problem wasn't the slope or the sediment. It was that nothing was breaking the flow. That's what led a group of researchers, including teams affiliated with the University of Idaho, to a different hypothesis. They started studying the landscape before the degradation. Old survey maps, sediment cores, pollen records pulled from soil samples. And what they kept finding was the same thing. These streams weren't always this fast. They used to be interrupted regularly, naturally, by something that spread water sideways, held it in place, and let it sink slowly into the ground. That something was gone. And the drought, researchers began to suspect, wasn't only about less rainfall. By 2023, translocation studies were already underway across Utah and Wyoming, not to add water, but to restore the thing that used to slow it down. Nobody was calling it a miracle. They were calling it a beaver dam analog. And the real question wasn't whether it worked. It was why it had worked for thousands of years before anyone needed to study it. So let's talk about the animal itself. A beaver weighs somewhere between 11 and 32 kilograms. That's roughly the size of a medium dog. Awkward on land. Surprisingly fast in water. They can hold their breath for up to 15 minutes and stay completely submerged while working, which is useful because the work they do underwater is extraordinary. When a beaver builds a dam, it's not doing it to be helpful. It's doing it because it needs still water to survive deep enough that predators can't reach its lodge, cold enough to store food through winter. The dam is self-interest. The ecosystem restoration is just a side effect. But what a side effect. Here's what happens when a beaver dam goes in on a degraded stream. The water slows down. That sounds small. It isn't. When water slows, it spreads sideways instead of cutting straight down. The floodplain, that same area that had been drying out for decades, starts getting wet again. Not flooded, just saturated, slowly, the way it's supposed to be. Sediment, which used to race downstream and disappear, now settles. The channel starts filling back in. The banks stabilize. And here's where it gets interesting. Wet soil grows things. Willows, cottonwoods, sedges, plants that need moisture to establish. These are the same species that used to line every creek in the American West before the trapping era. They come back fast once the water is there. And once the plants come back, roots hold the banks. Banks stop collapsing. The channel stops cutting. The stream starts healing itself. Then the insects arrive. aquatic invertebrates, mayflies, caddisflies the base of the food chain, then the birds, then the fish. According to USGS data from 2019, restored wetland areas around active beaver habitat showed significantly higher biodiversity than nearby sections managed through conventional engineering alone. Along the Price River in Utah, researchers watched this happen in real time. Within a few seasons of introducing beaver dam analogs, those engineered structures designed to mimic what beavers do naturally, the surrounding landscape began changing. Vegetation returned. The water table rose. The floodplain reactivated. All of this from a 20-kilogram rodent. Compare that to the millions spent on conventional river restoration, heavy equipment, concrete, engineered channels that need constant maintenance. The same 2019 USGS assessment found that many of those interventions had limited long-term effectiveness. The water kept escaping. The landscape kept drying. The beaver doesn't maintain its dam. It just builds it. And the river does the rest. There were once between 100 and 200 million beavers across North America. Today, there are somewhere between 10 and 15 million. That's a collapse of more than 90%, mostly within the span of 2 centuries, driven almost entirely by the fur trade. And here's the question that researchers started asking out loud. What did losing 90% of the continent's most capable hydrological engineer actually cost us? Here's where it gets harder to tell. Because everything we just described, the slowing water, the returning willows, the birds, the fish, that's the success story. And it's real. But getting there isn't clean. Relocating beavers into degraded desert streams is one of the most difficult things you can do in wildlife restoration. Not because of permits, not because of funding, though those are real, but because beavers are extremely hard to keep alive in environments they weren't born into. Think about what you're asking them to do. You're taking an animal out of a cold, established pond system. You're putting it in a truck. You're driving it hours into a landscape that looks nothing like home. The temperature is wrong. Summer days in Utah's canyon country regularly hit 100 degrees Fahrenheit. The vegetation is sparse. The food sources they need, willows, aspen, cottonwood, might barely exist yet. And the moment they arrive, the clock starts. Translocation stress alone is significant. Beavers are territorial, social, and highly sensitive to displacement. A relocated beaver that can't orient quickly will often abandon the release site entirely, sometimes within days. It just walks away into open terrain where it becomes very easy prey. Predators are a real factor. Coyotes, raptors, even bobcats. A beaver in unfamiliar territory moves differently than one that knows its pond. It hesitates. It's exposed. Emma Doden, a researcher at Utah State University, tracked survival rates across translocation programs and found results that were sobering. Relocated beavers showed a mortality rate of around 19% in the first 8 weeks after release. Compare that to resident beavers, animals already established in their home territory, where mortality sits closer to 11%. The survival rate for translocated beavers came in at approximately 0.88 across tract populations. That's not catastrophic, but it means roughly 1 in 8 animals doesn't make it through the critical establishment window. And that's the ones that stay. Some just leave. Walk out of the study area. Never build. Never slow a single inch of water. So does that mean the project failed? Here's the reframe that changes everything. Restoration ecologists have largely stopped measuring success at the individual level. A beaver that dies after 2 weeks may still have built a partial dam structure. That structure may still have raised the water table enough for willows to establish. Those willows may outlast the beaver by decades. The function survives even when the animal doesn't. What you're really trying to do isn't save individual beavers. You're trying to restart a process, and processes once restarted don't need the original catalyst to keep going. The landscape slowly learns to hold water again, imperfectly, over multiple seasons, multiple releases, multiple individual failures. The real question isn't, did every beaver survive? It's, did enough of them stay long enough to change what the land does with water? That answer takes years to know, and the scientists running these programs know it going in. Now here's where the story gets complicated, because up until this point, beavers look like a pretty clean win. Slow water, grow plants, restore wetlands, outperform expensive engineering. Great. Let's just bring them back everywhere, right? Not quite. Go to the Netherlands. Specifically the Riviera land region, a flat, low-lying landscape threaded with rivers, canals, and the dike systems that have kept the country from flooding for centuries. A country where large portions of the land sit below sea level, and the infrastructure holding it all together is not optional. Beavers were hunted to extinction in the Netherlands by the early 20th century. Then in 1988, a reintroduction program brought them back. It worked. The population recovered steadily. By recent estimates, there are now around 7,000 beavers living across the country and spreading. That sounds like a success. And in some ways, it genuinely is. Wetland biodiversity improved, riverbanks stabilized, the ecological results were real. But beavers don't read land management plans, and they're not particularly interested in where it's convenient for them to build. The Rivierenland Water Board, the regional authority responsible for those dikes, started flagging something alarming during routine inspections. Beavers had been burrowing into the earthen embankments. Not shallow burrows. Some tunnels had reached up to 17 meters in length, running deep through the structural core of the dike. Think about what that means. A 17-meter tunnel bored through the inside of a flood barrier. In a country where the barrier is the only thing standing between a populated area and the water it was built to hold back. A compromised dike is not an inconvenience. In the Netherlands, it's a threat on an entirely different scale. The Rivierenland Board now dedicates real resources to monitoring beaver activity along protected embankments, scanning, patching, managing relocations. The same species being celebrated as a restoration breakthrough in Utah had quietly become an infrastructure management problem in Europe. There's no villain here. The beavers are doing exactly what beavers do, finding still water, building lodges, digging dens. They have no concept of a dike. They're just beavers. That's the point. When people imagine bringing nature back, they picture something orderly. Species return, ecosystems recover, balance is restored. But living systems don't stay inside the lines we draw for them. They expand into edges. They find new opportunities. They create problems alongside every benefit. Restoration isn't a decision you make once. It's a relationship you manage indefinitely, with a system that has its own logic and no intention of staying predictable. So let's come back to where we started. The Utah desert, the empty landscape, the engineers with their machinery, trying to bring water back to a place that keeps losing it. We spent years assuming the problem was shortage, not enough rain, not enough snowpack, not enough river flow. And so we built infrastructure to compensate: pumps, diversions, engineered channels trying to force water to stay where we needed it. But here's what we missed. Beavers don't create water. They never did. What they do is slow it down long enough for the land to remember what to do with it. When beaver dams are active, floodplains refill, wetlands form, the soil builds up layers of organic material that hold moisture for months after the last rain. Research comparing landscapes near active beaver habitat to conventionally managed areas has found that beaver-influenced zones can retain significantly more water through dry seasons, with some studies pointing to wildfire resistance up to 3 times higher in areas with functioning beaver activity compared to adjacent degraded land. 3 times, from an animal that builds with sticks and mud. And here's the thing about ecosystem collapse that most people don't talk about. It isn't always about losing a resource. Sometimes it's about losing a function. The water was still there, falling as snow, running off every spring. The landscape just lost the ability to hold on to it. The braking system was gone. And without it, everything downstream dried out. That's what beavers bring back. Not water. The capacity to hold water. The memory of how this land used to work. Maybe that sounds like a small distinction. It isn't. Because if the problem is a missing function, not a missing resource, then the solution doesn't start with a budget or a blueprint or a government program. It starts with returning the animal that used to do the job. That's why they're releasing hundreds of beavers into the Utah desert, not as a symbol, not as a science experiment, as infrastructure. Some of the most degraded landscapes on this continent may not need more technology. They need the builders we removed from the system to come back and do what they were already doing for thousands of years before we decided we knew better. If that idea stuck with you honestly, hit like. It helps. And it tells the algorithm, someone out here still cares about rivers,